The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, regulatory actions, and political maneuvers in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact your freedoms.
Please support the State of Freedom by becoming a monthly supporter or member of the Warrior Circle, or by advertising your business, your nonprofit, or your event with us. Go to freedomstate.us. We are bypassing the mainstream media cartel and the establishment political parties in Louisiana and coming directly to you, spreading the uncensored voice of freedom across Louisiana and beyond.
Good morning, everybody. We are here by the hardest, but welcome to the State of Freedom, where we are grounded in faith in the Constitution, where we're committed to giving voice to truth, living with courage, and taking action. Today is April 23rd. It's a few minutes after 8 because of technology issues. Sorry about that, folks. And I'm Danielle Walker, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host. All right, put the weapons down. The watchdog in chief of Louisiana.
The guns.
The watchdog in chief of Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, Chris Alexander. Good morning, Chris.
Well, good morning, Danielle. How are you?
I'm good. I'm hanging in there. It's Thursday. We're here.
We're close.
Yeah.
Good
All right.
news to report.
Yeah, cool. And we're coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network, on Rumble, X, YouTube, and on Facebook. If you're watching live, take a moment to hit the thumbs up button. Even if you're watching it later, give us a like, share this with your friends. You can also catch us later on our audio-only podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Well, joining us today, let me bring our guest. Joining us today is Peter Ticktin, legendary Florida litigator with 50 plus years crushing it in the courtroom. He's Donald Trump's classmate and trusted ally from the New York Military Academy and best-selling author of What Makes Trump Tick. He's also the fierce attorney that's representing Tina Peters. And today we're talking to Peter about throwing his hat in the ring for Attorney General of the United States and getting the latest update on Tina's well-being, her high-stakes case, and the urgent fight to restore election integrity and really justice in America. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Absolutely.
Thank you. By the way, I'm getting this, your recording has stopped indicator like last time.
I know. Do you mind if we just bump you out and you come right back?
No, I don't mind at all.
Okay, I'll kick you out and then we'll have you come right back. Yeah, our technology has proven to be a challenge this morning, so thank y'all for bearing with us. And a big thanks to Peter for bearing with us as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always worth it.
Let's see. We'll give him just a second. All right. Well, folks, and I think this morning we're not going to have too much time to talk about what's happening at the legislature because we're, so honored to have Peter with us. But I think the best thing for people to do is to stay tuned on LeCAG's Facebook page because the biggest updates will be coming from there. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Facebook and X.
Yeah, okay. All right, Peter, we have your screen, but no video. There you are. There you are.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay, perfect. All right, welcome back. I was just going to read the scripture of the day and get us off to a good start. And thank you for bearing with us. My goodness, we've had some technology challenges this morning. So we just appreciate you hanging in there with us. The scripture for today is Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, and it says, "We have become his poetry, a recreated people that will fulfill the destiny he has given each of us. For we are joined to Jesus, the Anointed One. Even before we were born, God planned in advance our destiny and the good works we would do to fulfill it." And isn't it amazing that before we were born, God planned in advance our destiny and the good works we would do to fulfill it? My question for everyone this morning is, are you living in alignment with your destiny? Are you living in alignment with the destiny the Lord has for you? And if you're not sure, you should ask him, because the spiritual war we're living in the midst of is too significant and too intense for people to be in the wrong place on the battlefield or to be wielding the wrong weapons on the battlefield. It's right. It's vital that we're in the right place, doing the right work with the right tools in partnership with the right people, because if we're not, the Lord can find another way and another person to get the job done. But that has consequences. It causes more work for other people, which is why I think we see so many patriots near burnout, because a few people are doing the work that was intended for the many. And when we are out of alignment with destiny, we're missing out on opportunities for ourselves. We're missing out on important connections and on personal fulfillment for ourselves. So he made us on purpose, for a purpose. So why would we fight it and want to do anything else? Why would we play it safe? My challenge to us this morning is to evaluate with the Lord what changes we need to make, what yeses we need to say, so that we're living in alignment with his purposes and with the destiny he's planned for us.
Yep. And if everybody's doing their own part in their own small way, we're unbeatable. We're unstoppable if everyone is doing what they can do in their own way, in their own place. But we all have to do that. We all have to do that. We can't be spectators. This is not a time in our country's history for spectatorship and summer soldiers, okay, and people who sit on the sidelines and make comments about things but never really do anything. We don't really have a place for that. Everybody has a job to do. And if we're going to preserve liberty and save our country, everybody has to do what they can do right now. That's what's so critical now. And Peter Ticktin is certainly doing that and then some. Peter, what a pleasure to have you with us today, sir.
Thank you. I still have the same problem in terms of it saying I'm not being recorded.
Is it?
If
Okay.
it's okay with you, we can go forward.
Yeah, I think we just go forward because we can see you and hear you just fine. I
Yeah.
think folks maybe in the chat, would somebody put in the chat if you can see Peter, but I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Peter,
good.
before
But
we
what you're
talk to
saying
you,
is what I'm living.
Exactly.
I didn't throw my hat in the ring because I want to have a name AG after my name, or because I'm hoping to have a better future after this where I'll be more employable. I'm only 54 years old, but I've been 54 for 26 years.
you just celebrated the 26th anniversary of your 54th birthday.
Exactly.
Congratulations, Peter. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And not looking a day older for sure. But
Well,
what do you know?
if those that are in the battle, that are fighting the fight, that have purpose, I think we stay younger because we have no choice. We're needed now, and
Yeah.
we can't just sit back and let ourselves just go. Okay, we have to fight the fight. So
Yeah.
and everything you're saying just makes sense, because when people ask me why am I running, or why am I asking to be the next attorney general, it's because it's destiny, and we'll see what my destiny is. We'll see whether it is or it isn't. But whatever it is, it's not in my hands.
Yeah.
It's my obligation to do everything I can to make it happen, but it's not my obligation.
Yeah.
to
Well, one thing, Peter, one thing that we know about your being on the short list for Attorney General is that whether you're chosen or not, you'll know that you were either legitimately chosen or legitimately not chosen, which is perhaps more than we can say about our current election system in the United States right now.
Well, that's part of the reason I have no choice. It's because of the election system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look,
So,
these machines
gotta do it.
These machines are capable of determining the outcome. We've got 22 Republican senators that are up for grabs in terms of their seats. So what what do they need? Of those 22, if they got 18 of them, they would have a majority of 67 in the Senate. So to me, there's a nightmare scenario, and I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that it may. And the nightmare scenario is going to require not only the left has the capability in terms of the machines, which they have, to be able to determine the outcome of the elections of each senator, but more importantly, do they have the audacity? Do they have the gall to do what would be necessary and flip 18 of those seats? And they don't even need 18 because there's some rhinos that would gladly go along with what their plans are. But, do they have that much gall? And we know from 2020, of course they do. They took over our country for 4 years. I mean, and if you don't think that I'm right about that, let me ask you, when did it ever become a good idea to open up our borders and let anyone and everyone just pour in by the millions?
Right.
Obviously there's something stupid about that, or if not stupid, something evil. So the nightmare scenario is this: that they get the supermajority in the Senate, which would be 67, although they don't need 67, as they say, because they've got rhinos that are with them. And they also have a majority in the House. So then what happens? So we have like 60 days. We've got November 3rd is the election. No, so you go from November 3rd until January 5th. January 5th is the day they all get installed. So that's a very short period of time. If things went wrong in the election, to be able to ferret it out and figure out what it is and have some evidence to show it.
Yeah.
Because on the 5th, when they get together, what's their order of business in both the House and the Senate? The first thing they do is they each pick their speakers. The Speaker of the House is going to be Joaquin Jeffries, right? I mean, I don't think there's any question about that.
Right.
In the event that they get a majority.
Dollar Store Obama is his.
Well,
people will call him.
I know, but I think we better call him something else, because you know what? That's not threatening. It's not letting you know the evil of it. It's almost funny. So, the fact is that Joaquin Jeffries, if he is the Speaker of the House, what's the next order of business in the House? To impeach Donald Trump and J.D. Vance together. That's their plan. Not just to impeach Donald Trump. It doesn't matter. They can impeach anyone they want if they have the majority. They don't need evidence. They don't need a proper hearing. They don't need anything.
Yeah, they've proven that.
And so that they could do that within a day on the first day.
Yeah. So what do we do about these, Peter? What do we do about these election computers?
Okay, I'll get to that, but let me tell you the nightmare scenario.
Okay.
Then it goes over to the Senate, and the Senate removes both Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Then who's the President of the United States?
The Speaker of the House.
Joaquin Jeffries. We lose the House, we lose the Senate, we lose the presidency, we lose America, and we'll never get it back again. We know from recent things that Carville was basically saying, which is, don't talk about it, but this is what we're going to do. And we know what they're going to do. They're basically going to open the borders again. They're going to expand the Supreme Court. They're going to have Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. become states.
Yeah.
They're never going to be out of power again. And they don't even need to do those things because they have the machines.
Yeah.
So, it's all a fallacy, and they might as well just say that they own it and they've taken it. And you might think, well, if they took, 18 or 14 of our Senate seats, so that they would have the majority, the supermajority, to be able to remove those who have been impeached, you might say, well, the world's going to know. It's going to be obvious. Well, so was 2020 was obvious.
Right.
That's not going to stop them. They don't care because they need to do what they need to do because this is literally a foreign invasion of America.
It is. And Peter, do you feel like as AG you would have a stick to put in the bike spokes of that situation?
I love that analogy. A stick to put into the bike spokes. Do you mind if I use
Steal it.
that?
Steal it.
Okay. Well, the point of the matter is, if I am AG, when I get to be AG, one of the first things on my agenda is going to start organizing to make sure that we have our eye on the elections. All we want is fair and free elections, transparent elections. We can never get transparent, but at least let's make sure that they're fair. So then what, and how do I do that? Well, we know that there are observers, there are people working with it. But if this scenario should turn out to be true, then we're going to need to basically look at the computers immediately after the election. And the Department of Justice has the ability to investigate and to dig in. But there's no time. So we need to have everybody lined up and ready. And then if we can then show what happened, which we have to, then that would probably prevent those people from being installed.
Do you
Yeah.
think we have to go through another election with these machines in order to get what you would need to prosecute and to stop the machines from going forward unless an executive order is put out, or could there be some kind of injunction?
There needs to be an order that declares an emergency. So when you say emergency order, it's not like it's an emergency to get the order out, although there is. But what we're talking about is an order that declares an emergency, and with the emergency powers that the president has, he needs to be able to make sure that we have hand counting. And the fact that we've waited for so long is probably going to require, additional forces of some sort to come in to be able to handle it. So whether it's the armed forces or whether it's the National Guard, whatever it is that's going to be required is going to probably be required. We just cannot sit back and let this happen to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not something necessarily that's going to be permanent. If there is military assistance, or external assistance in helping with the hand count, if there is a new system, that doesn't mean that has to occur every election. But while you're transitioning and getting it in place, I would say that would be a very important thing to have.
It's going to be
place.
important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's some wonderful people that really know how to fix this and know how to make it happen. So if we could put those people together with what is needed, we can save our country.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you
But
expecting to have any? When are you expecting to know one way or the other about the Attorney General position?
The way Donald Trump works, and I know him pretty well, and I know how he would deal with something like this. Okay, and he doesn't see any urgency right now, and he's right, because Todd Blanche is there and he's kind of holding it in place. The department is running like a well-oiled machine because he's got the career people that are basically running it.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to be hasty, and there's no pressure on him to make a decision. But he likes to ruminate. And he likes to think about things before he acts if he's got time to. And, because he knows when he knows. He knows that if he comes to a decision, he knows, okay, this is fine. This is the right way to go. Because right now I've thrown a curveball into the works. Okay. And, they're not exactly sure how to deal with this. There's really good reasons that I should be the Attorney General. He's not necessarily sure that I've got what it takes to basically run an organization that's got 115,000 people in it. I've never run an organization that big. The largest I've ever run is 300 people. but I do have, a background in business as well as law, as well as a lot of other things. So, he's got everything in consideration. There are a lot of people that have gone to him and let him know that I need to be the next AG, from social friends to people like Rudy Giuliani, Michael Flynn, people like that know that I need to be there. And why do I need to be there? Because what you seem to understand from everything you've been saying, get our country back, etc. The language you're using it just fits in with exactly what I know to be true, which is that we're in a form of a war. We don't have bullets going back and forth. We're not shooting missiles at each other, thank God. But China is trying to take over America and destroy the Western world.
No question.
And they're doing it through surreptitious means. It's not blatant. If they were firing bullets, well, then everybody would come together and realize that we're under attack. Everybody would become afraid, and realize that they need to become part of the whole, and we would have America back again, because that's really what it's going to take to make America back. Right now, we're diversified. We're fragmented. There was a time that even for a fun show, like when I can go back to when the show L.A. Law was on. That wasn't that long ago. I'm not going back to the time before all of us were on the planet. But when L.A. Law was there, everybody was watching it. It was a big hit, and people were together watching that show, even though we were all over the country. Then Law and Order, when it first hit, everybody's watching the first episodes of that, and now, with the advent of our cell phones, we're all over the place. Anybody's watching it, whatever they're interested in. People are even getting away from television programs altogether, and looking things up. So it's going to take a unifying consideration to get us all together again.
And Peter, on that note, you mentioned, very few people have run 115,000 strong organization in in this country, or in the world even. But if you take into account that, let's say you're AG, and even looking from the outside, does it seem like it should be taking so long to get accountability on the issues that we are looking for accountability? What does accountability look like? You have been an attorney. You know how long it takes to put these kinds of cases together. What will it take to get the ball really moving on that? And then how soon do you think you could reasonably expect to start seeing some of those charges roll in?
Matter of weeks.
Well, and that's one of the advantages of having you, Peter, is that you don't have to go in there and reinvent the wheel. You don't have to go in there and learn all, this mass data. The evidence. You've been living this for years. You understand what the issues are. That is one of the singular advantages to choosing you for Attorney General, is that there's very little learning curve. Of course, there is an administrative learning curve, because as Danielle and you have mentioned, we're talking about a massive federal agency here that you're going to be running. But when it comes to the subject matter, understanding of the issues, the material that's operative, it seems like you are an easy choice here.
Well, I tell you, I'm seeing cases come to me every day now, or at least the number of them every week, where I'm seeing innocent Americans who have been persecuted by the Department of Justice, and I've come to conclusions as to what has gone wrong and why. Why do we have so many decent people that are prosecuted? And I realize that this goes from a time before Biden. It wasn't Biden, and it certainly wasn't Donald Trump in his first term. It was before. So what went wrong? And I looked it up. In 1998, 32% of all the crime in America were drugs, whether it was possession, trafficking, growing pot, importing, whatever the crime was. 32% of it were drugs. Now we've decriminalized marijuana, and I don't say that's a bad idea because, you know, that's a matter of an individual call. But I'm not saying this to poo-poo the idea in terms of whether it should be decriminalized or not. My point is that we have now about 25% less crime than we had before, simply by decriminalizing marijuana and other soft drugs. So, thank you. So what does that mean? So if you had, let's just say that at the end of your driveway, you know, you get into your subdivision, driving out of your subdivision, there's a stop sign somewhere there that you have to stop at. And probably you, like everybody else, are doing a rolling stop. You're not coming to a full stop because there's no cars coming, no cars in your way. So you come to a rolling stop, you're careful, you look both ways, but you proceed. If you had 25% more traffic police in your neighborhood, believe me, you'd be getting tickets for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a problem because right now the Department of Justice is the enemy of a lot of American people. And it needs to change. We need to become part of the American people. And to do that, the first thing that I would be doing is figuring out a system, which won't take very much to do, where we can detect the kinds of cases that are the wrong cases for us to be prosecuting. You know, where innocent people or people that are maybe guilty of minor transgressions are now becoming felons, put into prison for 8 years, that kind of thing. It just is horrendous. And it's because we never reduced our police numbers. We never reduced our prosecuting numbers. And that's why we had the incredible situation that a really bright mind like Merrick Garland was able to take this situation and turn it into the worst weaponization that we've ever even imagined for America, where he's gone after different groups. Okay, mothers that went to Board of Education meetings, doctors that prescribed ivermectin, people that were involved in cyber currencies, people involved, police officers. He went after police if there was excess force allegations, which never used to be a federal thing. It always used to be within the states that look after their own situations that way. Except there was an exception with Rodney King because there the state prosecution ended up with an acquittal when everybody could see the videotapes at the time where the man was beaten so badly. So that was retried by federal. But you know, the fact is that they also went after and are going after MAGA people who are in the upper middle class. And I mean, I had a case come in yesterday where they're still doing it, even though Donald Trump is the president of the United States. And even though we control the Department of Justice, our Department of Justice doesn't care. They're still going after MAGA people where these cases were initiated under Biden.
And Peter, on that point, whenever you started talking about this 115,000 strong government agency, that my immediate thought was, well, if you have experience with 300, let's get it a lot closer to the 300 number
300.
than from the 115,000.
Right, except for one thing. What this does is it gives me my manpower, because it just so happens we have a surplus of crime in America, except we're ignoring it and we're not going after it.
Yeah.
The crime I'm talking about are those people that are part of the insurrection of the United States. That I'm talking about, you know, the people like the people in the ACLU, for instance, people that are dedicating themselves to destroying our country. It's what we call insurrection or sedition. And these are crimes in America, crimes that you could even hang for. The only way for us to get our country back is for the Department of Justice to start enforcing the laws including the law of sedition. So when we have judges that are litigating from the bench and deciding that what they're doing is they need to do this, if they're doing what they're doing because the law tells them that this is what they need to do, or because they understand that it's right, irrespective of the fact that it's one side or the other, then that's fair enough. But we have a lot of judges, and there's some in Washington, D.C., in fact, that need to be examined. I can tell you about one magistrate judge in particular who is so conflicted, actually represented some of the people on the left, and some of the people involved with the election fraud, even Maduro. The lawyer for Maduro is now a magistrate judge in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
So,
He would
yeah.
not be be presiding over or have any involvement as a judge in anything to do with Maduro, would he?
Yes, she is involved
Well,
with the election cases.
wow.
Yes. I mean, she's going to be referred to the Department of Justice soon. This is my understanding. It's a case I'm on. So, but I'm probably not the one that's going to refer her. She will be referred because she's dangerous, because she's a seditionist. She's not just a judge. And so what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to fix this. But as I say, if nothing else, the biggest thing that we need to look at is either stopping the machines, or if it's too late, the machines are going to have a part to play in the midterms. Make sure that we're on top of the evidence, and we can show the American public that the election was rigged, and be able to then put the president in a position where he's able to save our country.
Yeah. There are people who, I mean, a lot of people would argue that they have already shown that 2020 was rigged. The evidence is replete.
There's no question about.
Is that something that you'll look at as Attorney General? Is that something that you will move on?
Of course. The people that think we should leave the crimes of the past in the past
Are the criminals.
Well, no, they're not
Ones who committed them.
necessarily. No, I think they could
Yeah.
be innocent bumpkins too. I think that this is something that Pam Bondi had thoughts of. She didn't want to go after the past crimes. What she didn't understand was that this isn't just a crime that occurred. This was an insurrection of the United States. They took over our government for 4 years. They rigged the election and stole the country. That's too big to ignore, especially considering that the people that did it, they never left the planet. They're still here.
Exactly.
They didn't die. They didn't leave their jobs and decide they're all going to go and move to some place like Madagascar. They're here, doing it still.
Yeah.
And so what do we do as a Department of Justice when it comes to these dangerous people? We close our eyes and say, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Are we going to act like three monkeys here? Or are we going to basically say, we have a big problem that we got to fix? Okay?
Yeah.
Elon did a great job in terms of looking for the money that was being wasted. Now we need to do a great job in looking for the people that want to destroy America, that are devoting themselves to destroy America, and get them the heck out of here, or get them controlled.
Yeah.
100%.
The very people that you're talking about, Peter, are the ones who got rid of Elon Musk when he got too close, when he was doing too much good and exposing too much fraud. And that, I think, is very, very unfortunate, because I think that he had only begun to scratch the surface.
Yeah, but it was a pretty good scratch.
It was
Yeah,
a pretty good scratch.
it
I mean,
was.
certainly enough to really, really pull the cover off of the fraud, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think he gave Secretary Besant a running start, and I would imagine as AG, Secretary Besant may become one of your best buds.
That's one man I trust. I trust Tulsi. I trust Hegseth. I trust Rubio. I trust so many of these people, the ones that we're talking about and the ones I'm naming. know that we're in this war that I'm talking about. They
Yeah.
understand that our existence is at stake. The president knows this. But I do believe there are other people in the cabinet that are kind of like aren't even aware of it. I don't think that Pam Bondi, if she were really aware of what the heck's going on, we would have seen a different kind of attitude. And now what I'm seeing is, Todd Blanche, and you know, I, I'd like to be able to say that he means well or that he's actually a good person, but I'm seeing that he's doing some. All of a sudden, he's making himself look as though he's ready to make things happen because he's afraid he's not going to get the position of Attorney General. Please God, if I don't care if I get picked nearly as much as I care about not letting him be the Attorney General, because we're going to just see complete frustration. This man gathered the very best minds, the very best people that would have been able to really implement the weaponization department. It's not just Ed Martin, but the people that he had drawn to him were incredible people. So he gets these very best people in the weaponization department, which was made by the president himself, was the one in an executive order that declared there'll be this weaponization department. And Todd Blanche and also the people involved in finance that need to, say where the money goes, starve them. What's the sense in bringing the best people together and then they don't give them a dime? They don't let them. They're not empowered. They don't get personnel to work for them. They're starved and they're unable to do anything. They're not even given authority to do things that need to be done because it requires
Budget.
the U.S. attorneys to lay the charges. But basically, they did nothing because they couldn't do anything, and that's all on Todd Blanche.
Wow.
So now he wants to make it look like Pam Bondi was the one that was responsible for the inaction. So he's got this thing going with the Southern Poverty Center, which is not against any individuals. It's only against an organization that doesn't matter if it gets a fine against it. The whole thing is a farce. But why is he getting his photo op yesterday to show that they're doing stuff and so on? It's because they want to put the blame on Pam Bondi. But it really was his doing in the first place. It wasn't Pam Bondi that was doing all that. He was the one that was operating as the chief operating officer.
Yeah. Why does Todd Blanche not understand or not see the critical issues that you see? Why will he not move forward and indict people? Why will he not clean out our government the way you? Yes.
Okay, first of all, the fear factor. Okay, if you go after certain people, your life is threatened.
Yeah.
So there are people that are afraid to die, and I don't have that malady. I don't have that problem. I don't want to die, but I'm not going to give up the United States because of a fear of it. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing. Second thing is he's looking for his future opportunities because he's a young man. So, what's he going to do next? If he does a nice job and everybody's happy with him, it doesn't make too many enemies, he's going to have a good career. What else is at stake here? Why else is it? Because he was a Democrat until January 4th, 2024. His friends that he has for his whole life, these are more than likely Democrats. I don't think he's going home and telling people that he's known for all his life and so on. I'm doing a great job for Donald Trump. Screw the Democrats. I've changed. I'm now a Republican, and I love it. I don't think he's doing that. I think everybody knows he became a Republican not because of an epiphany, but because of an opportunity. And so his mind is still back where it was. But frankly, it's not just Todd Blanche. Nobody wants to think of these things.
Yeah.
Most people want to think about tomorrow's football game if there's a football game tomorrow. They want to think about, sports. They want to think about social things. They want to, because our world is in a form of denial. And even those, and then there's that whole block of the public that say, well, even if I believed in this and understood it, what could I do? There's all these mentalities, which
Yeah.
is, you folk, and we, I should say, are not the majority. We're a minority.
Yeah.
We, and so he's part of that majority of people who don't want to see evil, don't want to know evil. They want to be a attorney general for their own right. I don't want to be an attorney general for my own right. I want to be an attorney general because I know nobody else is going to do the things that I know need to be done.
And Peter, I think it takes an outsider to go in because I lived in DC for a long time and I still have a lot of friends in DC, and to them, life, it's just life as usual. It's just another political cycle. These things are being brought up and people think that we're crazy. They don't understand the existential crisis that we're in because of the DC groupthink. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but there's something there. And if Todd Blanche comes from that mentality and hasn't gotten out of there for a little while to understand what's going on in the world, then there is that denial that's just reinforced if you're coming from there.
Yeah. Look, I don't hate the man.
Yeah.
I don't hate anybody. Uh, I don't wish him harm. I don't wish him ill. And in fact, he may end up being the the deputy attorney general, and I may be his boss.
True.
In which case, I don't want him working with fear or with. I'll need him, and
Yeah.
and I'll put him to work, but it won't be my agenda, not his agenda. And the requirements that he's going to do and things he's going to need to achieve are going to be what I am going to require that he achieve. So
What you said a minute ago, Peter, about the majority, what you said about the majority, they're probably, I would agree with you insofar as a majority of Americans probably have fear about getting involved, fear about potential consequences if they take concrete action and do things that are significant. I would agree with that. But I don't believe that a majority of Americans are unaware of the fundamental issues that we're talking about. I think a majority of Americans are deeply, deeply frustrated with the Todd Blanches of the world, with the
Chris,
Pam Bondis of the world. That's what I believe.
you know what, you're right, and I stand corrected because I really need to make that clear too. Look, when we are the silent majority, we really are, and you'd be surprised at how small the loud minority is. It's one place where was able to glean the numbers, okay, was last year in the State of the Union address. You may recall that was about 6 weeks after Donald Trump took office. Some people don't even call it State of the Union because he's so new, for a president's first one. But the fact of the matter is, after the State of the Union address, there were polls that were done. So CNN was the worst of all results. Now let's face it: if you have Trump derangement syndrome, you don't like anything he does. Okay, he could give you $1,000 and somehow you'll find something wrong with it. Okay, that doesn't matter what he does; it's wrong, it's bad. So there's no way he can even give a speech that anybody's going to approve. And yet, at the end of his speech, the polls that were done, CNN had 69% approved of Donald Trump's speech. I'm sorry, I got two dogs. I don't know if they can hear them in the background, but
It's all good.
All right, we have dogs.
The older one gets tired of the younger one, who's a new puppy, not that new, 13 weeks old, but she still attempts to get milk from the older one who's not her mother, and
Oh dear.
so the mother, so the older one, that's what you're hearing. So
Funny.
okay, so in any event, when you look at the numbers from after the first, it went up to 76% of the general public approving Donald Trump's speech. So don't tell me that it's 50-50 or it's neck and neck.
Exactly.
We are the silent majority, only we're going to lose hope to have and keep if we don't get to the polls in the midterms. And so I'm giving two messages. One is the machines are going to steal the election. And number two, you have to go to the polls, but you have to go to the polls because we're going to be able to not nail it down in terms of ballots, et cetera. It's not going to be so easy for them to just take this election over if we have an attorney general who's in place.
Yeah. Peter, we have gotten on our social media comments and views from all over the country about this warrantless spying under FISA. And, one of the things that our founding fathers warned us against was that I think it was James Madison who said that, perceived or real foreign threats are really what becomes the foundation for tyranny at home. What are your thoughts on this warrantless spying under FISA? Do you have concerns about violations of the Fourth Amendment and Americans who have committed no crime being surveilled by our federal government?
That's what the DOJ is for, and it's ignoring it. There's so many things, so many things that are going wrong with our country that nobody's looking at. But if somebody's breaking the law, there are laws that are put in place of how this whole thing is supposed to work. And if people are forging different documents to be able to fool the judges, or if the judges aren't being fooled, but they're just part of the cabal, one way or the other, if the Department of Justice doesn't bother to look at it, who will?
Yeah.
Okay, there's so many things. You could even look at January 6th. Now I know there's a lot of people that think that the patriots that were there on January 6th were evil or whatever. We've got certain senators that say if you were a criminal lawyer and you represented any of the January 6ers, we're not going to make you a U.S. attorney for the.
Right.
That's what happened to you, Ed Martin, right? But when you look at what really happened, there were people that planned January 6th in advance. The same people that were rigging the election. That was hand in hand with January 6th. We've got videotapes that go back to September of 2020, before the election, where they're planning to break the windows of the Capitol building so people can go in and this whole thing can take place. That's not the protesters planning it. It's not something that just happened in one day. This is something that was planned in advance. How else could there be 274 agents or confidential informants or whatever they were of the FBI that were there by design at the J6 event? It was planned in advance. And we know who these people are. We've got videotapes of them saying these things and doing these things. That is the sedition I'm talking about. Why is it that these people are not facing justice?
Right.
It's because
Great question. Great question.
And we know it's possible because of how quickly they rounded up the J6ers.
Of course it's possible. It only requires the will to do it. And that's the problem with the leadership at the Department of Justice, is they have a will to not do it. And that will to not do it is it's actually anti-American.
Yeah.
Because it's against us being able to keep our country and keep the freedom that we have. Right now, we're about the last place left on earth. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there are people in the UK, they're arresting, 30 to 50 people a day for what they say in social media?
Yeah.
There are people in prison in Canada because they criticize the government? Where are there places left that are free? You know, I mean, I guess
Yep.
there's a lot of third world countries that are available, that are free to, you know, such as Costa Rica or the Dominican Republic, but they're still under the thumb of the United States. And when the United States turns and becomes like the UK and like Australia and like Canada, where we lose the freedom of speech,
Yeah.
those countries will be gone too.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's only the United States that's left, and it's only Donald Trump that's keeping us safe and keeping it together. Without him, we have nothing. And, you know, and for the DOJ to then end the Department of, for Todd Blanche to be so arrogant that he could end the Department of Weaponization that was formed by the president without consent of the president, and to ignore all the other things that the president wishes and wills. I mean, the thing is, it's not just that we have him as a figurehead because he's good looking or because he's blessed or something. He's brilliant, and he knows what we need to do. And his wishes should be the Department of Justice's command. You know, we see that every time we see an attorney general get appointed lately, you know, one of the things that's asked of them, will you not, you know, we've seen this with Sessions, Barr, and Pam Bondi, the same questions. Will you promise that you will not implement an illegal order from the President of the United States? And for some reason, they think that they have to be completely independent of the President of the United States. But if the president has legal directives, you know, I want to make sure that we're people that are selling, that are prescribing medications aren't stealing from the federal government through the Medicare program. I want that to be an initiative. There's no reason that the Attorney General wouldn't say yes, sir, and make that into one of the priorities
Right.
of the Justice Department. But his wishes in regard to the most important aspects of what he's doing, which is to make sure that we have and continue to have free elections and a free country with the freedom of speech, no less, needs to be protected, and the DOJ is just ignoring it.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt that if you are selected, you know, things will change, and change for the better, because it's not lost on anyone that many of President Trump's priorities have not been faithfully implemented at DOJ. There's just no question about it, and I think that's one of the deep sources of frustration. One of the things that continues to amaze me is the fact that it's not being done, despite the fact that President Trump himself and his family have been perhaps the most victimized of anyone in the country by precisely the sort of weaponization of government that you're talking about here. And yet even then, it's difficult to get his agenda implemented. It boggles the mind that the President of the United States, especially one like him, would have such difficulty getting a vigorous agenda enforced.
Yeah, could you imagine if the Secretary of State ignored his initiatives, or
Right.
if the
Exactly.
Department of War ignored his initiatives? I mean, it's unspeakable, and nobody is caring about the Department of Justice to make sure it gets on track and does what it needs to do.
Yeah. Do you think
Well,
the
we-
president, Peter, has Todd Blanche's number?
You know, I'll tell you something. Having been, I am a trial lawyer, and I can tell you that when I have a trial for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or longer, my relationship with my clients become extremely close. And there's always that separation, kind of like what we saw that went wrong with Elon Musk and Donald Trump when his job was done. There's that separation at the end where, all of a sudden two people that are, let's say, buddies, all of a sudden are now going back to their own worlds, and there's that separation time. So I can understand the faith that the president would have in his trial lawyer, where he would understand him to be something that's beyond what that man is. We talk about me not having the experience of running that. I'm sure Todd Blanche never had 300 people under him before this. So, the fact is that, we've got somebody in there that's in there on the basis of the faith that Donald Trump had in him. And I think it's terrible in a way because Donald Trump was the client. Clients don't know what their lawyers think necessarily. They know what they pretend to think, but they don't know what they really think.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump has one problem, which is that he's an honest man. And you know how they say you can't con a con? But you can con an honest man. Because we all see the world from our own perspective. George Bernard Shaw said that the punishment of a liar is not in the least that he cannot be believed, but rather that he cannot believe others. Right? Because if you're a liar, you think that everybody thinks like you. We all think that people think the way we think. That's just human nature. That's just the way it is. So let me take what George Bernard Shaw said and turn it around, and I'll say that the punishment of an honest man is that he does believe others, and sometimes the wrong ones.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great
Yes.
point. Yeah. Well, he knows you. How long you've known President Trump for what? Danielle and I were talking about this yesterday. 60 years.
No, since we were 15. We lived together when we were 17. So since we're 15. So 65 years.
Wow.
Which is
65
remarkable since you're only 54.
Exactly. There you go. Well, Peter, before we let you go, we need to ask you very briefly, because I've got to get down to the Capitol here shortly, but can you give us an update on Tina Peters?
Yeah.
Yeah, the more I know Tina Peters, the more anybody knows her, the more they like her. She's just such a good soul, such a good person. That what's happening to her is such a tragedy. She's still in basically maximum security for a supposed white collar expense, white collar offense. Right now, what we've done is we filed a motion for rehearing in the appellate court. We were disappointed with their decision, but there were two places where they were particularly just off the wall wrong. One is in regard to the supremacy clause. The supremacy clause itself should have saved her in the first place, because if there's a law in the United States that has to be obeyed, and there's a law in a state that contradicts it that has to be obeyed, the federal law is superior to the one in the state, and the state does not need to be obeyed. So whatever laws that she was prosecuted under she should have been protected by the supremacy clause of the Constitution. Problem is that the judges saw this and they said, oh, well, there's a provision in the federal statutes that you could actually remove from state court and go into the federal court for your trial. And she didn't do that. Well, in fact, she did attempt to do that. But she couldn't do it. It was sent back. There was an appeal of it, and still she was sent back. And the reason she sent back is that provision in the federal statutes is only for federal employees, not for state employees. Mm-hmm. So they got it all wrong. And so we're asking them to reconsider their ruling on that, because that alone should basically exonerate her and get her out of prison. The other one is that we had a juror, you can't make this stuff up. we had a juror who had some transient cut her phone lines at work, cost her thousands and thousands of dollars. This was on the first Friday of the trial. And she thought that it was because she was a juror in the trial.
Oh, wow.
This was discovered after the jurors came to their verdict, but before the sentencing. It was brought to the judge, and Judge Barrett poo-pooed it and said, he didn't do anything. He had a requirement to have a hearing on it, to bring the juror in, find out what the effects of this were, and also find out if she told the other jurors that she thinks it's because she's in the case. And it's hard to imagine that someone who's on a jury in a case who has their phone lines cut and thinks that it was
That it has nothing to do with it, right?
That it wasn't the defendant. I mean, they're not going to think the police did it to her. So, for that basis, she needed at least a new trial. So on these two bases, we've moved for a rehearing, and we want this to be resolved as soon as possible, hopefully in our favor, but we don't have faith in the court anymore, considering the way they switched their entire attitude from the oral argument to the time they wrote their decisions. So, that's a bit of a problem in terms of that court.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll do the right thing, but if not, that's fine. One way or the other, we're taking it all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Because we need the Supreme Court to deal with the issues of the Supremacy Clause and also the issue of the pardon. That is not something that's been forgotten at all. That is something we're very keen on going forward with, because it's not just.
And there's nothing of late on the possible pardon by the governor himself.
Well, we're still hoping that he does the right thing. He's sent all the signals. I know now that he's asked the judge, made it clear to the judge that they're thinking about the pardon, and asked for Judge Barrett's, whether he has whether Judge Barrett has an objection or not, basically, and he basically had no opinion one way or the other. But so we know that occurred. So we're hopeful that that Governor Polis will do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're praying for her, Peter. And hopefully we will get a good result soon. I don't know, but I agree with you that the Supreme Court does need to take up these issues. But my number one would just be to spring Tina out of jail, regardless of of any precedent.
I promise you, if I do get the job, if that one man that has the vote votes for me and I get the job, I'll get her out.
I have no doubt about it. Peter Ticktin, thank you so much for joining us today, sir. It's always a pleasure, and we're absolutely rooting for you down here in Louisiana.
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
certainly are. And hopefully we'll see you again soon, sir.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless you.
What an honor, Chris, to have Peter Ticktin with us today. I just am so encouraged because we have not seen any single person line up for Attorney General, or really for very many of these roles. I think with the exception of, I would say Kash Patel was very frank when he was, even in the lead up to his appointment, about the nature of what we're really dealing with. There's a handful of people who have been willing to stick their neck out and say what's really going on. But Peter Ticktin has been at the forefront of saying what's going on, not mincing words, and not shrinking back because he's afraid of what the establishment will do to him. And I'm so grateful, because we need somebody who's smart, who understands the law, who understands how to build a case, and who is willing to fight for our country.
Yeah. Of course, Kash Patel became a profound disappointment.
Well, maybe he did
after.
and maybe he didn't, because there's a lot of children that have been rescued, and perhaps he needs somebody at the helm of DOJ to help drag this thing through. I don't know. I guess, you know what? Why don't we wait until Peter gets in there before we
Maybe you're right. Maybe
before
you're
the
right. And
verdict
Kash
goes out
Patel
on
is not in
Kash.
the DOJ. You're right. Kash Patel is the FBI. But yeah, you're right. And maybe he does. Maybe he just needs some help and some affirmation in the DOJ. And so I guess it's difficult if you're the head of the FBI and you have a DOJ that does not want to pursue what you want to pursue, does
Yeah.
not have the same priorities that you have. I could see how that could be very difficult. But the verdict is certainly still out on Cash Patel. But I don't see Peter Ticktin at any rate being someone who's going to change pre-appointment and then post-appointment. I
No.
just don't think he's that type of person. I think he's going to do exactly what he says he wants to do. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people in there who do not want him to be confirmed for a lot of the reasons that he talked about today on our show.
Yeah, and I think he should absolutely be the choice because he has nothing to gain from this role. He has absolutely no ego in this game. And I think that's something that we have seen and faced with a number of these appointments. You know, people who are maybe mid-career, he's exactly right. They're looking ahead, they're looking over the horizon to see what's next for them, and it is an ego thing at some point to have that title on your resume. So I just am super super encouraged by the conversation with him, and I'm praying that he is in fact the man for the job. I pray that we not only does he get it, but that he gets it soon, so we can start seeing some movement on this election stuff. Ideally, even before our primary in a couple weeks.
Yeah. I would absolutely love to see him get appointed to this position. I think things would change, and I think they would change quickly. He mentioned, Danielle, about how, he's never been the head of an agency with 115,000 people. The biggest he's had is 300. I wonder what Pam Bondi ran before she became Attorney General. I
Well,
wonder.
like I said, how many people in the world have run an organization that big? I mean, there's only a few. There's certainly these multinational corporations and government agencies are really the only places. So, if you're looking for that as your experience point, you're going to come up with a pretty short list.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But I think he's got a good shot. We didn't ask him exactly how short the list is at this point, but I think we can surmise that it's pretty short
I
right
would think
now,
it
and
is.
he's still on it.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. Well, Chris, I know you got to get to the legislature. We went longer than we thought we would, but I mean, you have to take advantage of the opportunities we've gotten, huh?
Yeah, we do. But I do want. I have to mention a couple of things before I go. This
Okay.
horrible HB 284 that everybody is familiar with now, the one that would just basically truncate due process, accelerate the expropriation of private property, supposedly to take care of blight. I believe that's dying on the vine. We've had major pushback on that bill. I certainly hope that it is dying or even dead, even though we have not gotten official word. That's Weibel's bill. So that would be great news if that dies. Chuck Owens' 1008, it's a great bill that would prohibit retaliation against any faculty member in a college or university simply for exercising their legitimate right of free speech, with heavy, heavy penalties
Yeah.
if they violate the law. That was returned to the calendar yesterday on the floor, set to be heard on April 27th. That bill needs to pass. The Faresh Imamis of the world, people who listen to our show, are familiar with her case, simply for disclosing the legitimate results of very, very critical research that she did. She was retaliated against, and it is
Yeah.
just sad over there at Southeastern. So this bill is so, so, so very important, Danielle. And then there are several others that we're pushing very hard, and then several others that we're pushing back hard on.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to push back hard today, but we're going to have some very, very good things to report when it's all said and done. I don't have a word right now on this House Bill 410 on the dual consent. We're still trying to get an amendment on that, but we've got to get people calling their legislators and sending emails and sharing everything that we put up
Do you
our
have a
social
call
media.
to do you have a call to action on LCAG's website on
Right,
that?
yes.
That's the one about recording a
For the dual
conversation.
consent.
Yeah.
The dual consent, yes. So we're going down to fight and fight hard today. Thank all of our listeners and followers on the State of Freedom and LCAG. Keep up the good work. You're doing a great, great job, and it means so much to us. So much to us.
It absolutely does. And just a shout out to Data 12 on Rumble. They gifted a subscription to us. Thank you so much, Data 12. And if anybody wants to support the State of Freedom, please do that. You can go and join the Warrior Circle at join.freedomstate.us. And you please also support LCAG, and that is the advocacy arm, lacag.org. We're just so thankful for all of your support. It takes all of us, and we do need your support to keep this thing going. So
We do, and that is Rocky in the background, Danielle. That is Rocky yelling at me to get down to the Capitol.
yeah, you got to go.
So I got to run, but God bless, and we will reconvene soon.
Okay, God bless you, Chris. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Led Zeppelin is the best kept secret, but because of us, it's really not a secret anymore. Anybody who has not been to Red Zeppelin on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge, you're truly missing out. The best environment, the best service, and the best pizza in the state of Louisiana. Go to Red Zeppelin today. Tell them the State of Freedom sent you. Blanco Brothers has been in business in Louisiana for about 30 years now. I have personal experience with this company, and I know others who have as well. If you have a business or a home and you've got roofing, gutter, sheet metal issues at all, one number you need to know, and that's Blanco Brothers Construction. He will treat you right financially, and he will take very good care of you with regard to the quality of the service that he provides. I cannot recommend Blanco Brothers Construction more highly enough. Memorize the number 225-226-4222. Blanco Brothers Construction, the very best in the business.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Any follow-up actions, resources, and links to our sponsors will be in the show notes. All calls to action can be taken at lacag.org. That's lacag.org.
To learn more about our work, become a monthly subscriber, supporter, or advertiser at freedomstate.us. The State of Freedom, the #1 conservative podcast in Louisiana.